mud-soaked boots sparking under the dawn. Ride in my hand, casting lines till they gone. Crickets chirping, beef frogs humming the bass. Got hooks in the water, dreams in this space. Reel it back slow, feel the tug pull hard. Backwater, Georgia, fishing stars in the yard. Sunset gold is painting the flow. Crank that line, let the country trap blow. Cypress shadows stretch, a scene soaked in grime. Moving that bobber like it's keeping through time. Bass jumps wild, a fighting outlaw streak. Georgia's waters talking, hear the river peak. Lantern glow, flicker, fireflies on high. Sip on the stillness, the moon's my alibi. Bait box heavy, but patient, steady. Beats in my soul, 808, stay ready.
There's something about growing up in a small town that just sticks with you, right? The way that the trees whisper in the heat, the red clay that never washes off your shoes, and the way that the water, well, whether it's a farm pond, a Blackwater River, seems to know your name, right? I'm Daniel Woodcock with the Real Backwaters podcast, about growing up here in the southeast part of Georgia. This is a story rooted back to my childhood in Pembroke, Georgia, a town where Saturday mornings meant bait buckets, zip code reels, and sunburned shoulders. We'll wade through the creeks, cast lines in overgrown ponds, and just enjoy your time on the Ogeechee or the Ogeechee Rivers, and swap stories with the town folks who taught us more than just how to hook a fish, right? But this isn't about fishing. It's about family tradition and the kind of wisdom that only comes from the time spent near the water. So grab your tackle box, settle in, join me down here in the south, where the water runs dark, the fish run wild, and the memories run deep. This is the Real Backwaters. Hey, and welcome to the Real Backwaters with Daniel Woodcock. Man, some of this stuff probably going to get teary-eyed talking about it, but we are digging back history into where it all began for me as a fisherman, with my grandfather, my father, my uncles, my best friends in high school, elementary school, and just growing up here in the South, where traditions are traditions, right? You get your own traditions going as a family. You're talking before you even born, you've already got traditions in your family. But let me tell you, I grew up in a small town called Pembroke, Georgia. It's probably about 35 miles west of Savannah. Nearest biggest city would be Savannah. But yeah, it was a small town. It was a railroad town back in the day. We still had we still had a train track running through. And I can remember laying in bed late at night, early in the morning, old train coming through, waking you up. We lived in an old house. Golly, I guarantee our old house was probably built back in the 1940s or 50s. It still had the old windows in it. It had window weights inside the window sills where, you lift it up, the weight went down on the side of the window. But I remember that train coming through many a nights, just rocking and rolling them windows. And then we had the luxury of living so close to a military base, Fort Stewart, Georgia. Them bad boys would crank up them big tanks and them big guns, and it'll rock your house too. But yeah, that's our little town had one stoplight. Everybody knew everybody. I think growing up, we only had one doctor's office. A lot of us rode bicycles around town as kids. If you saw all the bicycles piled up in the yard, you knew where all the kids were at for the day, right? As parents. But Yeah, I kind of had a best friend, Michael Harn. We grew up together. Um, lived right down the street from each other, so we did a lot of things together as kids. Um, I can remember, golly, his dad taking me fishing with him, and Mike would go fishing with me and my dad. But yeah, things as kids were great back then. Uh, golly, I grew up in the 1980s era. Um, early 80s was my childhood. Um, I'm a young gun. I'm only 52, but we had I think in my graduating class back in 1992, we maybe had like 70 folks. 70 is probably on the high end, but it was a great time growing up in Pembroke. Um, one grocery store, one, the going back to the downtown area, you maybe had two gas stations, one on each end of the town. Shoot, I remember when I was growing up, the old Ice House sat on the west end of uh, Highway 280, which is the main drag that goes through Pembroke. And Mr. Harvey Carruthers used to run that gas station, and we'd go up there and get us a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi-Cola out the machine in glass bottles for about 35, 45 cents. Uh, and then we had a hardware store, uh, which was downtown. And as a kid, when I wanted to go fishing, that's where my dad, we went fishing a lot after my daddy got home from work. But it kind of, he was the bait man. My daddy used to tell me go get the cricket box out the shed and go up there. Tell Mr. Jimmy. Jimmy's the one of the him and his wife owned the little bait shop there, or the little hardware store that sold bait and tackle. Um, and it was kind of neat because I'd go in there as a kid, tell him, "Hey, I want 100 crickets." My dad'd be back down here after work and pay for them. But yeah, the small towns are going away. Um, it's hard to find a small town with a small feel anymore. But the small town had people. You see people in the morning times in Pembroke. They leave for work, going toward Savannah, and in the afternoons they be coming back through town. Wasn't a whole lot of traffic back then while I was growing up, but like it is compared to now. But yeah, I kind of left Pembroke back in the golly. I went off to college in 1993, but my parents continued to live there until my grandmother from California, which is my mom's mom, moved here after my grandpa passed in California and built a house over in Statesboro. So that's how I ended up. Well, my dad's originally from Bullitt County. My mom's originally from California way. So that's a little history behind my family and the little small town I grew up in, and the way of life for us. Golly, it was simple back then. Simple life. We just, as kids, man, we'd play in the yard, go down to friends' houses and play. But as we grew older and was able to ride bicycles a little further than we could, we started venturing out to some of these ponds around town outside of Pembroke, especially one on. As a kid, I grew up fishing with my dad. Is out there on the Ash Branch Road, just outside of town now. Um, Back then, the city limits wasn't as far as it was out now. but it was in the county, uh, down Ash Branch. Um, Man, we used to go out there with the brim on the bed, man, and just use a old cane pole, fiberglass cane pole, whatever, and throw a weightless cricket on top of them brim in the bed and just wax them. I can't even remember the first time I threw a rod and reel. I think I was older, maybe in my teens before I even threw a rod and reel. I fished a lot with a fiberglass pole, um, and it was just fun. As a kid, man, you put that little cricket on there and let that cricket sink, and all of a sudden you see that line start running away. Uh, you pull back, and that old fiberglass pole just sings, son. It is singing some music through, through the old water. But but we caught many of brim. That's how that's the way of life here in the South. You go catch fish, put a little bit. You take the old milk carton in a milk jug, whatever you want to call it. Cut the top off of it, put your fish in it, fill it up with water, and put it in the freezer. Um, and save them for another day. But I know some people that still do that to this day. Is cut the old milk carton, milk jug up, and put the fish in it, freeze it with the water, thaw them out when it's fish fire time. But in as I grew older, and my dad would take me to my grandpa's house over in Brooklet, uh, which is my dad's father. We call his name is Julian Tuck Woodcock, and I spent a lot of time with Pawpaw Julian, and he used to raise old red wigglers in the old block building he had out there in his backyard there in Brooklet. And I can remember going out there. He said, "Well, we got about 15 orders we got to fill." So he had these little cups, these little styrofoam cups. He say, "Okay, 1 cup of worms is what you put in the bigger cup." So I'd go down there and fill up the 15 cups that he wanted. And we'd go down to some store that he knew the owner, and he'd sell them to him and pocket him a little bit of money. Then we would head on down to the creek, um, outside of Brooklet there, and and sit there for hours in the afternoon, or even early mornings when summertime rolled around. I was probably at his house more than I was at my house, but it was it was true family, back then. Now, and that's the reason why I'm getting back to my roots is these next 8 episodes of this podcast, um, will be reflecting back on my childhood, reflecting back on family traditions, and just in how I grew up fishing, where I grew up fishing, and where it all began. So yeah, it's amazing how far I've came in the fishing world. I can say for myself is, golly, I say I was in high school before I even started bass fishing. Like, not not really bass fishing, but like targeting bass. Um, we used to go. Me and Michael Harn used to we used to and go out there to Mr. Colin Floyd's place out there on. It was on Highway 67 in Bullitt County, but he had a big old field that had these canal waterways that run through it, and we take the little John boat my dad had, and we throw it in our. I think I had a little Ford Ranger back then. We throw it in the Ford Ranger, this big, long 14-foot aluminum boat sticking out the back, and it was just down the road we went. We had one little battery that we salvaged from probably the junkyard somewhere like that. I can't remember. And one little trolling motor. We hit them canals. We throwed them big white with a red belly beetle spin. We throw some plastic worms. Back then, the only thing that you could buy was culprit worms. And then I think as our years went on, I think Zoom finally come on the market, and we bought some Zoom trick worms and started fishing them weightless, things like that, and ended up catching fish, a lot of fish. Uh, Heck, I don't even know if we threw any fish back. We always put them in the cooler, split them up between the two families. Uh, but yeah, it was a it was definitely a time of leisure, a time of family traditions, a time of friendship, building friendships, the way of life, Southern life. And it was just, is what I grew up as. I grew up hunting, fishing. Uh, that's the way my dad grew up. They grew up on, and I'll give you a little back history. They grew up on a dairy farm that my grandfather ran out in Rester, Georgia. And they grew up fishing Little Lots Creek. Uh, it's just a small creek that runs through Bullitt County and eventually dumps out in Ogeechee River, just a little north of Highway 280 there, outside of Groveland. But I can remember my dad telling me that my grandmama used to take them redfin pike and just fry them whole, bones and everything, just fry them hard and just eat bones and everything. But yeah, it's Pembroke. Pembroke was a nice little town to grow up in, where everybody, like I said, like everybody knew everybody. Man, I can remember many nights in high school before I wake up Saturday morning. My dad already knew what I'd done Friday night after the football game, because everybody went up to Coward's Cafe. That was the little cafe in town. James Coward actually owned it. But I can remember sitting there. There was one table in there, Coward's Cafe. It was, when you walked in the front door, it was just a small place, but back in the back left-hand corner, there was a big long table. That's where all your regulars sat at. I can remember Judge John Harvey. Golly, he was judge there in Bryan County for a long time. Um, who else sat at that table when I was young? And Greg Harvey. I think he was a federal game warden over in Fort Stewart area. There was some other gentlemen there that my dad knew. Oh, Mr. Herman Butler. Can't forget about the only barbershop in town, Mr. Herman Butler. Uh, he me and his son played high school baseball together. But we used to get out there. There was he was a big horse person, and it was just he had a horse field or just a hay field down there that I think Al convinced him to put a backstop up there for us so we could play baseball in it. I can remember many a days going down there riding bicycles to Al's house, and we all get out there and play baseball. There was only about 5 or 6 of us. We didn't have enough to make 2 teams, but we split up each other and play ball. But getting back to the fishing stories, man, golly, I got so many, and I've gone blank with so many that it's it's crazy how many fish that I probably caught in my lifetime, and have put on many people's tables. And, I even in high school, I would catch fish and give them away to people that I knew around town, or my dad knew around town. We kept people fed back in the day. So, but yeah, it's I got to say, I really wanted to do this podcast, not sitting at my desk. I really wanted to kind of go sit down in downtown Pembroke and actually do the podcast with people walking by and things like that. But things happen. Things happen, and I came up with this idea of doing a where it all began 8 episode segment for the podcast. Just sitting here at my desk doing putting stuff in chat GPT and trying to come up with some ideas for the YouTube channel. And then I said, well, you know what, I could do an 8 episode segment podcast of where it all began for me. And I challenge anybody on YouTube or podcasting or anything is if you're a fisherman, just do segments on it, how it all began to you, and how you became the angler you have been in your fishing career so far, and where you want to be. Um, so it's very exciting to do this, and I really want to kind of do more segments on certain things, instead of just having guests on here and letting everybody get to know the real me, of where I grew up, how I came through things. I'm gonna have on these segments. I'm gonna bring my dad on. I'm do a pre all these shows are gonna be pre-recorded. Um, so they'll drop on YouTube every other Wednesday. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the notification bell, especially because when the episode drops, you'll get a notification straight to your email. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go do an interview with my uncle. Um, kind of another one that I kind of grew up fishing and hunting with, because my dad worked on weekends a lot while I was growing up. So I would go spend time with him, my uncle Chucky, um, things like that. So he would take me fishing, hunting, and it was getting to know how to do things as a young man to survive in the South, right? We hunt, we fish, uh, we eat fish. Yes, we eat fish here in South Georgia. We have the opportunity to kind of fish year round and have fresh fish year round. Um, but yeah, I really, I'm really excited about these episodes that I'm fixing to push out for all my listeners, for all my viewers, and things like that. So if you're wanting to learn more about me, make sure you tune in to the next episode. Episode 2 is the red clay, the muddy boots, and the farm pond dreams. Um, and in that episode, we're going to be diving into local farm pond fishing a little bit and telling stories of how we snuck in things into other ponds, knocked on front doors, kind of reveal some of our childhood, young adult fishing honey holes, and just a good old southern way of pond hopping. So make sure you hit that notification bell, you subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you for watching the real and listening to the real Backwaters.